Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. It has been a while since we have been together for a podcast, and we're excited to do this.
We've been talking about planning an outline for the next, several months, which has gotten my mind moving. I'm like, what kind of things do we want to talk about? What kind of stuff have we been talking about? Because we've got lots of stuff coming up that I'm itching to put out into the world.
Yeah,
so
I've
it's
had
going to be a lot
several people say, when are y'all doing your next podcast? I don't know if they need more sleep at night, need something to put them. So I don't know what it is, but we really appreciate though people asking about that. And we've got some exciting things that are coming up, but this one's kind of a special one.
Yeah.
We wanted to do a podcast talking about where we've been headed as a church. Yeah. Many of you know, if you're members at Palmetto, we have this year initiated a new vision and a new strategy along with that vision. So our vision is following Jesus together, and our strategy, we're referring to that as next steps. And if you have been following us, and if you've been online, you know that every week I begin by talking about our mission as a church. Yeah. And the mission of our church is the mission of every church, by the way. Yeah. No matter where in time it's existed, no matter where it's at. Yeah. Jesus said in Matthew 28, we're to go and make disciples by baptizing and then teaching them to observe everything that he's commanded. Yeah. We like to say it simply as we exist to make and grow followers of Jesus. So since we know that's our mission, how do we do that? Yeah. Now, in my series that we've entitled Next Steps, which, by the way, we've talked about that could be a misnomer to some people, because what I'm doing in the series Next Steps is we're digging into the Word and saying, what did it look like when people followed Jesus well? Yeah, right. There were some core practices in the life of people that enabled them to follow Jesus well, such as I talked last week about reading the Bible and praying. We see people who follow Jesus well. Jesus himself did that, which, by the way, is the key in this series. Everything I'm talking about, Jesus first did it. Right. And showed us how to do it. Yeah. Now, flowing out of that, out of those core principles, we have next steps. And this is our way. In fact, let me just let me kick it off to you, because I think a lot of people have been confused about what exactly are the next steps. Right. I know we've tried to explain it, but sometimes it's helpful. You can't get into the weeds as much during a sermon or even in class as you can in a podcast. Right. So let me just kind of ask you, how would you explain to people what next steps is all about?
So a next step is kind of twofold. First, a next step is a practice that you take. It is a step that you take. It's something that you do that moves you toward the goal of following Jesus together, our vision, and ultimately making and growing disciples. So yes, it is something that you do. But on the flip side of that, it's something that we are able to track so that we can determine if what we're doing is actually effective. Because we don't want to just be spinning our wheels. We don't want to be putting our tires up on ice and then just spinning really, really quickly, but not actually going anywhere.
That's right.
We want to look back in 6 months, look back in a year, and be able to say, wow, look how we've grown. And what we've recognized over the years is that attendance is not always the best metric. No. Butts in seats is only a metric that really helps when you're just looking at a chart, because you don't know who was in those seats. You don't know where those people are spiritually, and you can't really determine the effectiveness. Now, you can tell whether you had a charismatic leader that people wanted to come and listen to, but whether or not the lifestyle of your church was actually a culture that people wanted to be a part of, attendance doesn't really do you any good. So what Next Steps enables us to do is to look at the big picture and say, okay, how do we follow Jesus well? Yes. All of these next steps. But then can we determine that what we're doing, the things that we're implementing as a church, as a leadership, are in fact effective? Nobody, whether you're a salesman or a project manager or a teacher or anybody else, would get to the end of a year and not have some kind of metric to look at, whether it's grades or sales numbers or anything, and look at your numbers and not have seen effectiveness and just say, oh, well, we don't need to change anything. We must just stay the same. But what we want to do is be able to say, okay, this initiative worked. When we really hunkered down on prayer and enabled people to do that well, look, more people were praying. We would say that that's a good thing. Spiritual growth and ultimately becoming like Jesus is the actual goal of this entire thing. We don't want you to look more like us. We want you to look more like Jesus. So what Next Steps enable us to do is to see whether or not that's actually working.
Okay. So Next Steps is a way for people it's a door they can walk through to become more like Jesus.
Absolutely.
Not that there's not other ways that might live outside of what we're calling next steps.
Absolutely.
But it's a way for them to take their next step wherever they might be in their walk with Christ. And then as a church, we measure whether what we're offering is effective.
Yes.
Is it actually helping people to grow in their relationship with Christ? Because many times what churches do is they're scattered in all different kind of directions.
Absolutely.
Because there's so many things you can do as a church. And in fact, you and I were talking not long ago about the reason why a lot of churches don't grow is because, for instance, there may be 1,000 different ways you can serve your community. Well, if you've got everybody doing their own thing in the church and serving, you have scattered your resources, you've scattered your time, and your effectiveness.
Absolutely.
It's like having the body of Christ. Paul speaks about church as being like the body of Christ. It's like having your hand do one thing and your leg do another thing. You know, your mouth say one thing while your feet are doing something else. You know, there's just no coordination. So part of what Next Steps helps us to do is to line up together as a church under our vision, which is under our mission.
Right.
And we can evaluate what we're doing.
Yeah, because I mean, ultimately, we want to be able to evaluate and look at these things so that we can determine whether or not you are growing, so that we can partner together and make those kinds of things happening. And I love that you made the point. Just because we have it listed as a next step doesn't mean that this list is exhaustive.
Yes.
There will always be new next steps to take. There will always be new opportunities, and sometimes they'll be reflected here, but sometimes they won't. And just because I think we do need to make the point, you taking a next step does not necessitate you going through this process. You don't need to, go through the website as we're going to show you in a few minutes because you read your Bible today. We would say that's a next step toward following Jesus, submitting yourself underneath the Word of God. But you don't have to go track every single day. Now, if you needed to request prayer, that is a next step that you can take through our Next Steps launcher that we're going to show you in just a couple of minutes. And it is something that we can track so that we can see, wow, we had this massive group of people request prayer, or man, we have this event that takes place year over year. Well, we can look and see, how did the attendance, how did the volunteers, did we have more people volunteering this year than we did last year? So there will always be new opportunities, but there are things that you can do on your own. I think that's kind of been a question that has been coming up multiple times. Like, well, do I have to go every single time that I want to,
if I'm going to visit my neighbor, do I have to go the next steps to?
No. Because we would say that those are a result of you becoming more like Jesus.
That's right.
Those are the practices that will naturally come out. And we would love to hear those stories. We would love to hear more about you going and visiting your neighbors and the growth that came as a result of that. So I think Next Steps is an opportunity for us. And anytime we put out a new initiative, anytime you start something new, there will always be growing pains. There will always be a period of time where we're learning together. That's exactly what we're doing
What
right
is
now.
this about? I mean, we're trying to help you become like Jesus.
Absolutely.
And so we're saying, here's a tool. He's always trying to get you to move toward him, to become like him.
Right.
And all of us are at different places in our walk with Christ.
Right.
We're going to have people who come to visit us, or maybe they come to our website before they even come to see us, which is what most people do nowadays.
Absolutely.
They're going to visit our website to see who we are. Well, we've got a button that even says plan your visit. So that they can let us know they're coming. We can be prepared for them. We can have someone go out to meet them. So that's an example. One of the things we talked about today, for instance, we're going to be adding probably Next Steps sometimes on this.
Absolutely.
We have got, you've got a killer Bible reading program that when we encourage people to read their Bible, that's going to live as the next step. We're also going to be including a class for people to go to learn more about Palmetto. That's going to be on the next step. And so what we're doing is we're providing a tool to help people in their walk to become more like Jesus.
Absolutely.
Now, I think some people might have some questions about, okay, how does this practically work? Explain about how the central hub idea and what that means, if you don't mind.
So the Next Steps launcher is something that lives on every page of our website. Regardless of whether you're on the home page or the media page or anything else, it is always at the bottom right corner so that you can access it at any time. It also means that we have a kiosk set up at church. So if you need assistance, or if you're the kind of person maybe like me that once you leave church, it's like you've forgotten everything that you needed to do while you were there. So for instance, if you need to sign up for a retreat or sign up for something and you're only going to remember if you're physically in the room, well, we have that available for you. Somebody can walk you through the process.
And that's a great point, because all of our signups are going to go through our Next Step button.
Yep.
If you're signing up for whether it's a new members class or we're going to call it something else, but if you sign up for, I think we decided on what to Discover Palmetto, then you can sign up through the Next Steps. Or if you're going to be at a luncheon that we're having, a potluck, we want to have a number, you sign up through there. Yep. So that type of thing is going to live on our Next Steps as well.
Yep. So the Next Steps launcher, we're calling it our central hub, because every action will live in that space. It's the central place that all of us can come to, regardless of where you are, because it lives on the website. Now, if you don't know what our website is, it is palmettococ.com.
Yes.
We recognize that not everybody knows what the domain is. We just say, oh yeah, go to the website. And they're like, what's your website? Yeah. I don't know. palmettococ.com. Yep. So what I want to do for just a second is I want to give you a little bit of a walkthrough, a little bit of a tutorial on what completing a next step would look like.
Older folks like me need that.
Absolutely. And one thing that we do want to do, I'll go ahead and say this before I dive in. If you need additional assistance, we're going to set up in the next week or so, we're going to try to find a time that works best, an opportunity maybe even to hop on like a Zoom call together, so where we can answer your questions live. Yeah. We can share our screen with you, and we can actually engage in this real time. But what we're hoping is that this resource and this opportunity will at least show you what the process looks like, so that you can hopefully take some next steps and contribute to this as well.
Yeah, I mean, our goal, and we know this is going to be happening throughout the year, we want to continue to explain this better. Yep. We would like every member of Palmetto and even visitors who come in to understand where we're going, what our next step is.
Yep. So we're going to dive right in. You're going to see this pop up on your screen. You'll see I am on our website. This is the homepage of our website. You can see our vision right here on the main page, Following Jesus Together. And you'll notice over here on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, you see a button that says Next Steps. Now, if I click on that, our central hub, our Next Steps launcher will pop up. And you'll see a variety of different next steps that you can take at any given time. I'm new here. That's like if you're a first-time guest, this is where you would fill in that information. Planning a visit, like Mike talked about just a moment ago, this gives us some information to make your first visit or your 30th visit the best one that it possibly can be. Baptism, about us, and then you'll see this button that says see more next steps, because there's way more than just 5 for you to engage with. And if we click that button, it's going to go into another long list, including requesting prayer. If you'd like to contribute financially to the ministries of our church, joining a life group, signing up to volunteer, watching us on YouTube, or just a general contact page. So what I want to do is I actually want to show you what it looks like to join a life group. Let's assume that you are a member of our church and you want to get engaged in a life group. Maybe you have a group of friends that you're involved with, but you want to dive a little bit further into spiritual growth alongside a particular group of people.
By the way, I'm going to be talking about this next Sunday.
Oh, this is perfect then.
Perfect.
So we're just previewing what you can do this week.
That's right.
So you're just going to go right in here and click Join a Life Group. And this is called a flow. A flow is just going to walk you through some questions and some information for you. So you can see kind of on this opening page why life groups are important, why community is important. And then you just hit continue. And it's going to ask you a series of questions. Now, some of these questions you'll notice in a minute, you can skip. Some of them are important information for us to have, but then others, you don't have to fill out the information if you don't want to share it. Yeah. So the first question that pops up, do you want to be a part of a group that meets where you live? We recognize that some people don't want to drive incredibly far, or maybe driving at nighttime is hard for you, so you want to limit that as much as possible. So you maybe want to be a part of a group that meets pretty close to your house. So let's assume that you would fall into that category. You're going to click yes. So then automatically there's a question that pops up. Great. What part of town do you live in? Because if you live in Lexington, we don't want to give you a group that meets all the way in Blythewood or Chapin. Like you would have a really long way to drive. So let's just include that. You live in Lexington. Well, that's great. So then we need to know your name, because we want to know who is it that we're talking to, who can we connect with. So we're just going to call him John Doe, because That's what we all do on our on our examples here. So we're just going to hit continue, and then we're going to ask for your email address, because this is the way that we follow up with you. This is the way that you receive more information. So we're just going to once again put in a bogus email address right here, johndoe1234@gmail.com. We're going to hit continue. Same thing with your phone number, because we have ministry leaders who would love to reach out to you and be able to connect with you and find a little bit more about what group may fit you and your life the best. So we're just going to type in our phone number there, a whole lot of 8s. And then what's your address? This actually does give us a specific location to where you live. 123 Straight Street. I hope that's not a real place. Apparently it is somewhere, but then we're just going to hit continue. And then you can notice you can add all of this other information as I'm doing so right now. Apparently, I don't even know where that is in Rotterdam. That's actually a real place. Okay. 123 Straight Street.
All right.
Your birthday. Now, some of y'all are like,
Street.
why in the world do you need to know my birthday? Well, you may want to be a part of a group where there are people who are a similar age. If you are 25 and not married, you may want to be plugged into a group with similar age people. So I'm just going to use this already date in there. We're going to hit continue. What's your gender? Once again, you may not want to be a part of a group that is particularly heavy on one side or the other. And now this is the part where it says any other family members coming with you. Now you can add that information so we can know if you have children, we can plug you in with a group that also has a bunch of small children, or you can just skip that information and we can have that conversation later. And then finally, any questions for us. If there's any questions that you have about life groups, why are they important? Anything like that, you can include that information here as well, or you can just skip it and just say move on. Now, you can see right here, you can go back and review any of the information that you've already put in, and then you simply hit submit. Now, once you have submitted, on the back end of this, our involvement minister, Sean, will be able to field all of the flows, all of the submissions that have come in, and he will be the one who will connect you with the proper ministry leader.
Now, there'll be an automatic response on all these, first of all, right?
Yes, that's a really good point. So you'll notice right here, there is a thank you page that just pops up right here, but then also because you typed in your information, there is an auto reply that you'll get just confirming that we did receive your submission.
And saying we're going to get back in touch with you.
Absolutely.
The next
so then one final thing before we jump out of this little tutorial, you'll notice there's a box that says create a password. This is where you can create an account through this. All an account means is that it's your email and your password. You don't have to put in a bunch of information, but if you decide to come back later and submit a different next step, you want to jump in, you can hit this button right here that says sign in, and some of that information that you've already included will automatically populate, like your name and your email address and stuff, and it will make it easier for you and will streamline the process so that next steps are easier for you each and every time.
First time will take a little longer, but after that it's much quicker.
Absolutely. You'll notice there were a lot of questions there, or you can just skip and continue onward. So now we're going to jump out and continue the conversation.
It's important too for people to know that when somebody who's not a member say they want to take an important step like baptism, they will, first of all, they'll get an immediate response to that. And then they're also going to have some follow-up, not only from an individual. We are in the process of, we're going to be putting together some videos for them to watch in preparation of meeting with an individual about baptism. So this is going to be a way, because making disciples, Jesus said, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so that's going to live here on Next Steps as well for people to choose.
Yeah. And we want to be clear, like, we're not going to spam you. We're not going to send you stuff all the time. Like, this is not the way. But we do have the resources and the ability through the system to automatically send you some additional information that we believe would be helpful, that will enable you further. I love the baptism example because that's one that we're really passionate about. And we want to make sure that you have as much information as you possibly could have so that you can be prepared and know what you're getting into.
That's right.
So this is just about our way of trying to equip you and trying to empower you as you follow Jesus well.
Yeah, and we want to keep going to that step. It's about the big picture.
Absolutely.
It is about the fact that Jesus has called us to be his body in the world, to be like him, and to grow his church in maturity. This is a way for our leaders, for us to help people take that next step, whatever it might be in their life. And we keep emphasizing it's going to look different for everybody.
Right.
There is not going to be one uniform. I know, Kyle, you have said this many times, that you may take the next step a number of times.
Right.
It may be that you can, right now in your life, about all you can do, because life is very difficult, is request prayer.
Yeah.
And you can do that time after time after time, however many times that you need to.
Yep.
It may be that you're not ready for a certain next step.
Right.
But we want to encourage you, as God prompts your heart, to take that next step. It may live here on our website. It may be a next step that we don't have listed here.
Right.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, I had somebody ask me the other night, well, what if I, in fact, I heard one person say, well, is part of the next step where I have to know the books of the Bible, for instance? No, I mean, that's not a next step here that's on our website. It's a good thing to do, but that's not part of it.
Yeah, there are no prerequisites to this thing.
Yeah.
You can take a next step on here or in everyday life, regardless of where you find yourself on this journey. We just want to be a part of it. We just want to walk alongside you as you do it, because we're doing the same thing.
That's right.
We take next steps all the time.
That's right. In fact, we're asking each other's staff.
Yeah.
And we've already done that. Said, what is your next step? What is it that you need to grow in? Because I don't care how long you've walked with Christ, you haven't reached full maturity yet.
That's right.
There's still more for you to do.
Yep.
And this is going to grow. I'm sure this will evolve even as we go. We just want to get better and better at following Jesus.
Absolutely.
That's what it's about.
And what you'll notice, just to get practical for a second, if this is still confusing for you, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, we're going to put together a Zoom conversation so that we can continue to walk with you through it. There will be a staff member at the Next Steps kiosk in our lobby every single Sunday who's ready to answer any questions that you have. And then also living on our website, there will be a shortened version of what we just walked through, a little tutorial just showing you, hey, here's the basic steps for how you take a next step on a technical side. But we want to reiterate, it's not a prerequisite for you to go onto the computer and fill something out just because you took a next step.
And let me just say how thankful we are for Kyle. I mean, Kyle has got the ability. He's got the technical side of this, and boy, we lean on him a lot, and he does a lot of work in this. He wouldn't tell you this, but he puts a lot of work into this, and we're so appreciative of that. And let me just reiterate what he said. If you have any questions, grab one of the staff.
Absolutely.
And ask us a question. And if we can't answer it, if I can't answer it, well, I'll go grab Kyle and say, hey, here's a technical question. Get the young guy to answer it. But please don't hesitate. If you're confused about any of this, let us clarify.
For sure. We'd love to do that.
Yeah.
So is there anything else we need to cover?
I think that's it. You know, we just want to encourage you guys to continue to follow Jesus. Let the Spirit guide you and take that next step. We know that you have a next step, just like we have a next step. And so please, any way we can assist you in that, let us know.
Yep, absolutely. So we can't wait to see you. Let us know any questions that you have. You can include them in the comments of this video. Send us an email. There's even a contact page right there through the Next Steps launcher. So I'm already pointing you back to it. We hope you have an amazing day. Grace and peace, my friends. Hope to see you soon.
God bless.